That's great. My name is Vince Gansberg. I'm the Director of Coaching Education for United Soccer Coaches. Before then, I was a state director. Actually, I worked for U.S. Soccer for a little while, and then I was a state director coaching for Indiana. I was also an ODP regional staff coach, national staff coach, and everything years. And I was recently in Florida with the 09 Midwest group. So with me tonight is my son, and I'll have him introduce himself and where he's from.
Hi, guys. My name is Zach Gansberg. I don't know if you guys can see the resemblance between myself and my dad, but that is my father. Zoom does not convey height. I don't want to pick on him too much, but my dad is 5'6" and I'm 6'3". And so the resemblance is probably closer on a Zoom screen than it would be in person, but certainly happy to be interacting with you guys today. I'm the head men's soccer coach at Mount Vernon Nazarene University, which is a school located about 45 minutes from Columbus, Ohio. I'm entering my 6th season at MVNU. And so happy to be interacting with you guys. I just want you to know it wasn't too long ago that I was sitting in a seat much like the one that you're sitting in now as a 1988 birth year Indiana ODP soccer player. So it wasn't that long ago. Enjoy it while you're still a player, but happy to get to know you guys today.
All right, very good. So I'm not sure if all of you have the opportunity to do the chat, but if you can put, I'm going to ask you to put something in the chat box. So with my high school team, I also coach a high school team here. I live in Indianapolis, Indiana, and we play this game called the hot seat. So every now and again, we put players, in front of their teammates, and we ask these little questions, as does my son. He does it with his college players as well. So
I do.
We're going to do a hot seat question just in the chat box, and it kind of ties along with what we're going to talk about tonight. And hopefully we won't go too long. It's actually my bedtime normally. But here's the hot seat question. My face is on the cover of a cereal box. What is the slogan? So if your face was on the cover of a cereal box, what would be the slogan that would describe you? So just go ahead and type in a few things in the chat box and we'll share a few. Brown food is good food. Very good, Luther. Remember, it's on a cereal box. Everyone can see us. Who is this hot guy? Okay, work for it. The snack that smiles back. That's actually really clever, Zach. Don't you think? That was really good. Take the chance. Good. Keep at it. Do it right. Football is life.
Football is life.
No, football is life. That's from Ted Lasso.
Not sure about a few of those.
Yeah, that's from Ted Lasso. It's crunchy and delicious. These are fantastic. So, Coach Gansberg, how do you do it with your team?
We do a much different hot seat than this, Dad, but this one's working for this group, so it's not too bad. We put one of our players in the center of the room, and we have one of our assistant coaches just grill them with questions. And at the end, their teammates get a chance to ask questions as well. Like sometimes what's their favorite animal, and then they have to act it out. And we have one of our Scottish players do a voiceover for one of our players acting out a polar bear or something stupid like that. But I might have to steal this.
Oh, you cut out on me. So, Zach, you muted. There you go.
It wasn't that good what I finished with, so we should be fine.
All right. Well, so we'll move on. Those were actually very, very creative, very artistic. Some of you. So I'm just going to share my screen, and give me just a second here. So tonight we're just going to talk a little bit about what it means to go from good to great. And I'm sure a lot of you have heard, Zach, can you see the
Yeah, you can see the tabs right now.
How about now?
You can see it's still there, yeah.
It's just a weapon.
How about now?
It's still there, yep.
All right, hang on. Try it again one more time.
Whatever you did earlier, do it now. There's full screen. Let's see. Yeah, you're good.
Good.
You're good.
All right. So, Coach, my son and I, we're not going to take too long. We're just going to hopefully give you some nuggets, maybe some things to remember. Some of you are 10s. It look like 2010s. Some of you might be 2014s on here, maybe, sorry, not 2014. Sorry, 2006s. I've been told. So hopefully some of this, even though you might be younger, maybe you can take a nugget or two from this presentation. So, and I'm going to have my son, I'm going to tackle it from more of a, of an older perspective. My son's going to tackle it more from, kind of what he sees with his college players, because I thought it'd be really good for a college coach to come on and share, for example, in this case, him, what he is looking for in players. Because I think a lot of you don't understand it's not just what you do on the field. I mean, that's a big part of it. Don't get me wrong. And what's been, obviously you're really good because you're in the spot you're in. You're, representing, a region, you're representing your state, representing something bigger than yourself. So congratulations on so far where you've gotten, but the really great players go make a choice. They're great by choice. So I'm just going to go ahead and start. And there's a saying that talent gets you to the door, but it's character that gets you through it. So a lot of you have talent right now, and you've been picked because you're talented. Maybe you're a really good right back or a 2 or a 3, or maybe you're a great holding midfielder or a 6, or maybe you score goals or you're a fantastic goalkeeper. That's great. You're talented. But what makes the difference are all the other little things that you're going to do. You're going to make choices, whether they're on the field or off the field. That's what makes the difference. So it's your talent that gets you there. It's your character and your integrity and your morals and your values. That's what gets you through to the other side. And I've been fortunate enough to coach national team, some professional kids. Ray Gaddis, for example, played for the Philadelphia Union. He was sitting in your seat. Some of you, I saw some female athletes on here. Lauren Cheney from Indianapolis, Indiana, now Lauren Holiday. She was in your seat as well, in your position as well. She was a young, talented, player, regional ODP. And actually she was told she would never make it to the national team. Well, she didn't hear that. So she blocked out that noise, and so these are just some of the kids that I've been very blessed to have worked with. And I've taken some teams, some ODP teams overseas. We played against Barcelona's youth. We played against Espanyol, and a lot of those kids went on to play professional as well, or at least play at a high Division I school. But so at the end of the day, though, it was their character. It was things other than what they do on the field that got them to the other side. So I'm going to share 2 little stories. Some of you probably have no idea who these people are. There might be your parents, if they're watching, maybe they know one of the 2, and maybe they know both of them. So I'm just going to ask in the chat box, if you think you know one of these 2 players, go for it. Type in their names. If you think you know, here we go.
There you go, Greg. Nice.
Greg's right on the money. So the player on the left
is pretty good.
And Jerry Rice. Cassie, very good. Excellent. So Alan Shearer and Jerry Rice. Wow. Zach, that's good. You know what? I think Peacock has a special on Joe Montana, so maybe they cheated. But
that could be it, yeah.
No, that's great. Fantastic. So you already know who these 2 players are. So on the left is Alan Shearer. On the right is Jerry Rice. 2 very, very, very successful players. They had some athleticism. Jerry Rice had a little bit more than Alan Shearer. That's for sure. But I'm just going to share a couple stories about these 2 that maybe a lot of you don't know. And so I'm just going to move along here. So Alan Shearer, you can see here all the bullet points that, you know, that he's accomplished or he achieved in his time with Newcastle. He also played with Blackburn Rovers. But, you know, he had the most goals in Premier League history, even today. And then he's a top scorer for Newcastle, scored 30 goals for his national team. But you know, if you look like on the fourth bullet point, most Premier League goals scored from inside the box, because that was his niche, right? I'm just going to, you know, put myself in the box and try and finish there. So he still has the most Premier League goals in a single match with 5. And here is a guy who didn't have a lot of athleticism, a lot of speed, but he just worked and worked and worked and made himself great. So I'm going to go ahead and share this story. So I apologize for the ugliness of these photos, but these are real photos. These weren't taken with like an iPhone camera. They were taken with a digital camera back. This is about 2004, 2003. Some of you definitely were not even born yet. But so there on the left, there's a picture of a car, and then there's other cars parked there. So those are the players' cars. So I'm driving in, I'm with a group of friends. We're going to watch Newcastle train, Newcastle United train. I was actually there at Sunderland, and then we got a chance to go from Sunderland to watch Newcastle train. So why not? Alan Shearer was there, but then there was a couple other really good young players that they had, and their names were Kieran Dyer and Jermaine Jenas. Well, the car that's kind of blocked or parked sideways, and it's actually blocking the other car, that's Kieran Dyer's car. That was Kieran Dyer's car. So Kieran Dyer was this really naturally gifted athlete and player. He was going to be the next great thing for England, for England's national team. He was young, and he liked to goof around. He liked to have fun, which you should, right? I mean, you're young, you got money, and you know, he was just kind of enjoying life a little bit. And by the way, you all should enjoy, you know, a living. But I'm just kind of sharing the story to set the tone. So everyone else is parked right, and Kieran Dyer is blocking a couple of cars, just because he's trying to, you know, be a little prankster. On the right, that's the first team coming out to train. So a little story that is not really shown in the picture. Alan Shearer was the first out. He was the first out to come. He warmed up on his own. He had a couple other teammates come in. The last two to come on were Kieran Dyer and Jermaine Jenas. And they were the last two. They were two of definitely the most talented players. So they went through their training session, and afterwards we actually talked to the managers, and they didn't know what to do about either one of Kieran Dyer or Jenas, because one was bringing the other one down, because they had this talent, but they didn't have the character to get him through. Don't get me wrong. They made it to a high level. They made it to the professional level, which isn't bad, but they could have been really, really great. And they played for our national team a couple of times. But the next little slide, what I'm going to show you is, so after training was done and everybody went, you know, off. And by the way, you could probably guess, Dyer and Jenas, first two out. Alan Shearer went out and he grabbed a bag of balls. And so he's kind of right here. I don't know if you can see my cursor or not. Zach, can you see my cursor?
I can see it, yep.
Yeah, so the guy there in the yellow vest, that's Alan Shearer. And there's a bag of balls. There's a couple other players around, but he sticks around and he spreads the balls all around, and he just starts whipping free kicks on his own. He just starts, and then he spreads out the balls again, and he takes a touch and he hits a shot. Then he goes to another ball. He runs to another ball, takes a touch, hits another shot. So he puts in another 15 minutes. He puts another 15 minutes, 20 minutes. Then he calls it a day. He was great by choice. He had a long, successful, incredible career. And the other two had good careers. They could have been unbelievable. If someone can please mute, that'd be great. Trying to see who it is. So anyway, there we go. Okay. Here's the other player, and a lot of you might already know this player and maybe some of his story. So this was Jerry Rice, and Jerry Rice was a wide receiver for the San Francisco 49ers back when they won many, many, many Super Bowls. Quite a few. They were always a contender. They had a great coach, Bill Walsh, and he took a chance on Jerry Rice. No one else wanted to take a chance on him in the draft because he didn't have really good separation speed. And, as a wide receiver, you need good separation speed. And his hands were kind of so-so, at least they thought. So as the season goes on, his rookie season, he's dropping passes right and left. I mean, Joe Montana's whipping balls in there, and he's just dropping them. And everyone's like, this guy's a bust. Well, then he just kind of believed in himself. He kept talking to himself, no, you know what, I'm here. I can do this. And he's positively talked to himself. And he ended up really being one of the greats. Actually, you might even call him the GOAT of all of wide receivers, because he had just an unbelievable career, won Super Bowls, was in Pro Bowls, in the Hall of Fame. But I bolded, and I don't know if you can see it, at the bottom, it says most career touchdowns from scrimmage. So I'll share with you a story. I got the privilege of listening to Joe Montana speak. So the famous San Francisco 49er quarterback that threw balls to Jerry Rice throughout his career. And he said in this speech, he was talking about Jerry Rice and how great he was. And he said it was practice. It was at the beginning of the season. Jerry Rice is a rookie. And so we're just practicing little go routes, right, with no defense. So they're just practicing. Joe Montana's practicing, the snap. He goes back, he drops back, he throws a pass to Jerry Rice. And then he said Jerry Rice caught the ball and he sprinted from where he was 60 yards to the end zone. And all the veterans were laughing. They're all like, oh, this rookie's just trying to show off. This rookie's just trying to show everybody up. Joe Montana, so Jerry Rice came jogging back. And Joe Montana said he did it again. He threw it to Jerry Rice. Again, no defense. So imagine doing like attacking type work or shadow play with your team and finishing with a goal. That's what this guy was doing with no defense. So he just kept doing it. And then all of a sudden he started to throw the balls to the other wide receivers and they started to do it. So his actions became contagious. And basically he was practicing finishing the play. He was practicing being great. He was practicing visualization. Hey, when I catch the ball, I'm going to finish. I'm going to go, even though it's practice, I'm going to get to that end zone. So he was already setting the tone for himself. He was preparing himself. He was being great by choice. And after that rookie season, they won the Super Bowl. And after the Super Bowl, so they win. And then the next morning, he's in with his trainer catching passes. He could have just taken it easy. He won the Super Bowl. He was one of the top players. And here he is. He's not resting on his laurels. He's back in there. He's training. He's getting prepared for the next season because he knows, there are other young receivers that are going to come up, and I guess I want to share these two stories about these two players because what they did is they basically took what they, kind of had a natural talent to play a sport, but they took it beyond that because of their mind and in their heart, they wanted to be great. And so, and by the way, notice the college he went to. He didn't go to Alabama. He didn't go to Georgia. He went to Mississippi Valley State, and which is the same, I think, right, Zach, as Bobby Boucher, right, from The Waterboy.
I think it was something like that. I don't know if these kids have seen The Waterboy, though. So
No,
I'm not sure about it.
They probably shouldn't see it.
Put that in the chat. See if no, they probably shouldn't. Maybe not.
All right. So Jerry Rice was really known for just self-talk. So what I'm going to do is this next slide. As a player, you have a choice. You have a choice. And I'm trying to see if we can mute whoever that is. So really good players talk to themselves and they don't react to things, they respond. So as a coach, you know, and if there's a college coach, for example, that's going to watch you play someday, they're going to watch, do you react to things or do you respond to things? So in the chat box, if you gave the ball away, what would be a phrase that tells yourself you're going to respond to that as opposed to reacting? Because a lot of times when we give the ball away, what do? We go, oh, crap. Or we blame our teammate, you know, and for not running hard enough in that space. So in the chat box, we don't want that, right? We don't want reacting or getting mad or getting upset or getting down on themselves. What would a response look like? So go ahead and just type that in. And Zach, if you can help me, that'd be great.
Yep. Win it back. A lot of people are saying win it back. Get the next one. We tell our guys next play. I constantly repeat it. Next play, next play.
Yeah.
Sounds like they're ahead of the game.
Yeah. Good. So set yourself up for next. That was really good, whoever put that in. Make an effort trying to get the ball back. Yeah, so if you gave it up, can you make an effort trying to get the ball back? Fantastic, James. Yep, we got the next one. Win the next one. Good. Unlucky next ball. I would stay away from the words unlucky because I think you make your own luck. So, but fair enough. David, you're quite the sense of humor. I can pick that out already from your chat box. I can already pick that out. That's great. So, and then like, for example, some of you get subbed out, right? In the heat of the moment, or in other words, how do you feel when you get subbed out? Do you react? Well, reacting is looking like you're upset at the coach, or you're upset because you're going out because you feel like the coach doesn't have confidence in you. So a response would be something else. So you got to think of these things. You got to think of, how am I going to react to these things? For example, a high stakes game. You know, it's a championship, it's a Final Four. You know, how do we respond, or how do I respond to that? Well, high stakes game, your response should be the night before the game or the day before the game. You're eating right. You're eating, for success. You're hydrating for success. And by the way, you cannot underestimate sleep. Sleep is one of the best things you can do to improve your performance. Three of the world's greatest tragedies were caused due to lack of sleep. Chernobyl, 3 Mile Island, and the Space Shuttle Challenger. When they researched and they went back, the workers were doing double and triple shifts. So their reaction time to certain problems, or their just alertness, it wasn't there. Also, when you sleep, right, and you get a good night's sleep, you're faster, you run faster, you're less hungry. Actually, when you don't sleep, it triggers a hormone called the ghrelin hormone, which makes you want to eat all the time. So I know it sounds silly, but you need to get your sleep if you want to respond to a high stakes game. So think about that, and 8 hours minimum, but teenagers, you need to sleep. And I'm telling mom and dad on this call right now, it's okay that the teenagers sleep in on the weekends. You might not like that, but they do need their sleep. So it's one of the reasons why schools now are starting at around 8:30 for high school students as opposed to earlier. Okay, so I'm going to turn this over to my son, and we're going to go from here.
Thanks, Dad, and thanks everyone for tuning in. Just want you to know, you can see the MVNU men's soccer logo posted on the Zoom, but this isn't a pitch for my particular program. I just felt it appropriate to be on the call, really to try to give you guys a leg up on the competition. I see some young kids on the call. There are probably some high schoolers as well. I can't see everybody. I see 3 faces on the way that my Zoom is formatted. So, and those are young faces, but there might be some high schoolers as well. Really what I want to do is just kind of give you an inside look as to what I'm going through as a college coach right now, what I'm trying to work on with my 18 to 24-year-old kids and soccer players. And really what you see on this screen is that our objective, my objective for the team, is to have a championship mindset set in stone by the end of the spring semester. I put that there so you know that this is a challenge for college athletes as well. This is something that I'm working on with my players constantly, something that's always on my mind. But what an opportunity for you guys to get a competitive edge today by listening to someone like my dad, who's a legendary coach, coached me, been around the game a long time. And then hopefully for me to add a little bit of wisdom to the conversation, just because I'm in it day to day with college athletes. My guess is that a lot of you aspire to play in college at some point. You can see underneath that, one, it's a tremendous opportunity so you can get a competitive edge on the competition. But secondly, what an awesome thing that you guys are here tonight. It's 10 o'clock. It's 10 o'clock p.m. on a Saturday. You're here. And what that shows me is you want to be great. You want to be great. But have you made the choice to be great is the thing that I want to challenge you to think about for the rest of my time presenting. When you make the choice to do something, it's very different than just wanting to do it. It's different than a desire. It's something that is you've chosen, and at every moment, it's like on your horizon. It's something that you're thinking about. And when you stack priorities, feelings like not wanting to train or not wanting to work hard or not wanting to eat healthy, they won't get in the way because you've chosen to be great at this particular sport. You guys are all soccer players. You're on the call. But I think at some point, maybe not for the 12-year-olds, that point's probably not now. But when you're choosing between soccer and playing the tuba or dance or whatever it is for you, at some point you make the choice to be great at this particular sport. But once you've made it, you know, all the other things will follow because it's going to take what it takes in that moment. And so, Dad, if you can flip to the next slide. A good reference I have here, and it looks very tedious, but is really to think of it as a final destination. So you guys have probably all flown somewhere. If the reference I have here is flying into Memphis. It's interesting because my dad told me, he didn't tell me yesterday when I put the graphic together that there are a lot of Memphis players on the call. He told me that about 10 minutes before the call started. But this is the flight pattern into Memphis. The idea is that once you've set your final destination, okay, as Memphis, that's always on your horizon. That's always where you want to go. But there's a ton of waypoints along the way. You can see all those little waypoints. You see Igloo and Hubble and Dog and Fincher, whatever the heck that is. But at the end of the day, you always know where you're trying to go. And for the people on this call, you've made a choice to be great. And you've made a choice to be a great soccer player. So every decision you make along the way should have that end goal in mind. You can flip to the next slide, Dad. Okay, that picture of Cristiano Ronaldo is not meant to be overly humorous, but man, good-looking guy, sculpture of a man. You can see him right there. The quote here is from a book that I've read recently called "It Takes What It Takes," and really, the heart of it is that to be elite, you have to have a plan. And the challenge I have for you guys as players is that you're going to have a lot of different coaches along the way. Some of you are 12. You're going to have a coach of your U12 team, this ODP team. You know, each year you ascend through the ranks, you're going to have a different coach. My challenge for each individual is to have your own plan. Be thinking the things you can do. Be thinking the things you can put together with your coach's guidance and with your parents' guidance. But elite athletes have a plan. They have their own plan. You can see Russell Wilson there. I put him on this slide because Russell Wilson in the Super Bowl, anybody remember the Super Bowl when he threw that pick to Malcolm Butler? He was on the 1 yard line and they had beast mode at running back. And instead of handing the ball off to Marshawn Lynch, the offensive coordinator, Darrell Bevel, decides to throw a slant. And Malcolm Butler for the Patriots picks it off. Russell Wilson loses the Super Bowl. Devastation. You can see in the interviews after the game, he was absolutely emotional, couldn't believe they'd lost. But the next week, Russell Wilson had already taken interviews for a speed coach. He wanted to get faster. He'd already booked his whole offseason house. I think it was in Southern California, so he could get away and just focus on training. He'd already hired or taken interviews for a chef. And so, guys and girls, the point is he had a plan. Traumatic moment, they lose the Super Bowl. He was already thinking about the ways that he could be better. He had his own plan to reach his goal, which was to win another Super Bowl. And if you watch the Seahawks this year, it wasn't because of Russell Wilson that they didn't have a good season. Their defense was pitiful, which is really unlike them. And then you see the picture of Cristiano Ronaldo there as well. The only reason I put that because I saw recently that Cristiano Ronaldo times his sunbathing. And so we talk about having a plan to be an elite athlete. He knows the amount of time that one would need to be in the sun for it to help their performance, the amount of vitamin D versus how much time in the sun would fatigue an athlete. And so these are things that elite athletes are thinking about themselves. It wasn't Pete Carroll that told Russell Wilson to hire a speed coach. It was him thinking about his game and saying, I want to be faster. Same thing with Ronaldo. And if anybody saw the Juventus Amazon Prime All or Nothing, you may have seen that particular scene as well. Really fascinating. And look, Russell Wilson's 34, I think, and Ronaldo just turned 37, and they're both phenomenal athletes, still competing at the highest level. So to be elite, you have to have a plan for everything, all the little things that you want to do to improve your game. Next slide, Dad. Okay, so many of you are thinking, I've made the choice to be great. Even some of the young ones, you love to play, you want to be a college player, you aspire to be a professional player. What do I need to do? One thing I would say as a college coach is you need to do something called deliberate practice. My dad talked about Alan Shearer earlier. What you may have noticed is he had all of those balls laid out, but my dad painted a picture of Alan Shearer taking free kicks and then setting up some, dribbling and then some finishing. It wasn't just him out there whacking balls aimlessly. Deliberate practice is when your mind is engaged. What I tell our athletes is when you're interested, your mind stays present. So if you're juggling a soccer ball and you're interested in it, you're watching the spin, you're thinking about what it feels like to strike the ball, or you're setting up free kicks and you're visualizing yourself where you're going to put it and putting yourself in a context of the game, your mind is actively engaged and you're getting deliberate practice. What happens over time, and 12-year-olds, 14-year-olds, the more you have those moments of deliberate practice, you start to see these marginal gains begin to add up. And so then you can see the second bullet point there is it's an aggregate sum, which means essentially over time, those things add up to a pretty impressive amount of skill acquisition. And so deliberate practice is practice where your mind is engaged, where you have a plan, just like what my dad showed earlier with Alan Shearer, setting an entire session up after the practice was over. I will say a good pulse of a really good team is how many players stay after. And so like many of you have been on really good, high school teams or club teams, or maybe this ODP team you're on now, I've always found that a great pulse for where your team is at is how many guys are staying after getting work in. And for coaches on the call, it might be something that could be helpful for you too. I know when my team is struggling emotionally or socially, when people are taking off. And so, if you want to be a championship level performer, an elite performer, stay after like what Shearer did, but set something up. Before you move on, Dad, one thing I think that's important given mental health right now is that there is a lot of space for just going out and playing with your friends. And so like deliberate practice is going to allow you the skill acquisition, but there are times when you just need to go out and mess around with the ball and let it be a release. Let soccer be your escape. I have players that deal with that, and I want to make sure that there's space for that too. And there has to be, because soccer needs to be fun, it needs to be something that you enjoy. And sometimes you just need to get away from whatever it is that's going on in your life. And so there has to be space for just play and just going out and hitting some long balls with friends and socializing too. So don't forget that. Next slide, Dad, please.
Yep.
And so this is a saying that's become very important for me and what I'm trying to build within our program. It's the idea that championship teams or championship athletes have championship standards all the time. Like what you saw with Jerry Rice and catching those slants or whatever pattern my dad said, and Rice was sprinting to the end zone. You know, that was a practice. You know, that was probably an ordinary Tuesday or whatever. But championship players have championship standards, and nothing changes, is what I'm saying. Like we're in the middle of futsal with my college team, and we train at 8 to 9:30 at night on Monday and Thursday. That's after their day of classes, after some of them have worked, after they've had dinner, and then they're coming to train. But there's no ordinary day. Like I'm expecting a championship, a championship standard of what I see out of those guys. I put on here the Maple Leafs as a real counterexample to what I'm trying to convey, which is that the Leafs, if anyone's a hockey fan, in 2020, COVID year, the Leafs were up 3-0 against the Canadiens in the series. And they started to falter. They started to tense up. It got to a game 7, and Amazon's All or Nothing showed all of the little things that were taking place before that game 7. And they had also shown the entire season how the captains of the team were leading and how the coaches were leading and how the GM was leading. And what was really interesting to me as I watched was that game 7 came about and everyone was doing things differently than they were the entire season. All of a sudden, the leaders were stepping up and talking. All of a sudden, the coach was, making sure he had everything prepared. The GM was calling the goal scorer who hadn't been scoring into his office to try to give him a little bit of a pep talk. But everything was changing in the biggest moment. That's the opposite of really how it should be, guys and girls. The championship teams, championship athletes, they have championship standards all the time. It's when you're at a lift, it's when you're in your basement, you're thinking about the choices that you've made and the areas in which you want to be great. And that's what drives you, and your mind is engaged, so you're improving on it, day in, day out, even with the littlest of things. And that's what pays off, because then you get to the biggest moments and nothing changes for you. You're used to it. Your coaches are used to it. Your teammates are used to it. And you just play. You're able to go out and play with a quieted mind. And so championship teams always have championship standards. Nothing changes. So this is a little bit of program specific information. I think this might be helpful just so you can kind of get a look at what the next level looks like. MVNU Men's Soccer is a program that competes within the NAI in the Crossroads League. We're a successful NAI program, but I think no matter where you end up going, if you do play in college, there are going to be things similar to this as it relates to a code of conduct, which is what we call the Mount Vernon Man. And so I don't know how well you can see some of the stuff on the screen, but we have expectations for our players off the field as well. And many times, like you can see the second bullet point there, it's your goodness or moral quality that really dictates whether you end up being great. There are a lot of really talented players that no one remembers, that have no influence and that left no impact. And so it's really your goodness that brings about or begets greatness. And so we really expect our athletes to have standards of conduct off the field, but we're not expecting them to be perfect in this when they come in as freshmen. Some of you might be a couple years away from being a freshman in college. We're not expecting you right away to know all these things. My expectation is that you're aspiring to understand these and implement them. And then by the time you're a senior and have graduated, these things are habits for you. And so just a couple examples that you can see in front of you. In the classroom, we expect our players to sit in the first 2 rows. We expect them to greet and thank their professor each class period. Socially, we expect them to greet and make eye contact with other people, hold the door, say please and thank you. These are just standards of behavior and conduct that are good in any walk of life. And so if you can get into good habits, there's a much higher chance of you taking good and becoming great. Recognize that it's the moral fiber that really will help you do something legendary and have an influence on the world around you, which is the point of your giftedness as soccer players. The training 10, you can kind of read it quickly. These are just things that we expect at training. If I have time, Dad, I just want to share something as it relates to body language that has been really helpful for our team recently. And this is an old version of the training 10 that you're seeing in front of you, but I want you to think about this as you go about whatever event you're at now, or as you head into your spring season. Body language is a big piece, and also verbal communication with your teammates. I told our guys this just yesterday, 2 days ago, when we had training, 9:30 at night. I'm bringing my guys in and telling them, look, like, your verbal and nonverbal communication, your only thought should be whether it helps your teammate play better and whether it helps you win. So, like, it's the sender is not the important thing. It's the recipient. It's whether it's going to help your team. And so when you slump your shoulders down because your teammate makes a mistake, that's not going to help him. Some players respond better to verbal, like, being motivated loudly. Some players need to be praised. You need to know your teammate before you really can understand what will help the team win and what will help him play better. And so as you think about the ways you communicate with your teammates and also your nonverbal communication, your only thought should be, does this help? Does this help my teammate? And does this help my team win? I think that simplifies a lot of things that really can hold players back. And so that's going to be our on our training 10 for 2022. You're seeing an old version, which was just this past season, fall 2021. But little things like, man, if the coach calls you in, jog in. Just stuff like that, just to get into good habits. The idea that it's your goodness that will beget greatness as a soccer player.
Hey, Zach, can I pause you real quick?
Yeah, sure.
Can you share the story about the assistant coach watching a player one time when they was going to recruit him, the Mike Avery story? If you can share that real quick, and then we'll
sure.
Move on.
Yeah. No, I think that'd be good. Mike Avery is a former assistant coach at the University of Notre Dame. He's a friend of my dad's and a friend of mine. And he always told a story of a player that he was recruiting. Was it for Berticelli or Bobby Clark? Was it for Bert? Dad?
Bobby Clark.
Bobby? Okay, yeah, it's for Bobby Clark, legendary head coach at the University of Notre Dame. I believe he was in Missouri somewhere watching a player play. It was 8 o'clock at night. He was going to a high school game, and Avery was on the recruiting trail for Bobby Clark. Watching the player play. The kid's a fantastic player. The kid's transcendently talented. Avery is incredibly impressed, and he had Bobby Clark's approval to offer this kid even before he went, based on Avery's opinion. And Coach Avery thought, man, this kid is great. And he watches the whole game. I think he even called Coach Clark and asked him, okay, like, just one last time, I have your permission to offer this player while I'm here with him and his family. And Coach Clark said yes. And after the game, the player is around his parents. He played a great game, and he was incredibly rude with his mother. I think it was his mom, Dad, if I remember correctly.
Yep.
And he just had a terrible attitude. Maybe it was even, I think he was talking back to his mom. And I don't know that he knew Mike Avery by his face or knew where he had been sitting. And so he may not have known that he was in earshot of Coach Avery, but Coach Avery left, and that player never got offered and didn't end up at the University of Notre Dame, which was a national championship program at the time and one of the best 5 Division I programs in the country. And so the point of that story, guys, is one that people are always watching, but 2, you need to be thinking about how soccer is the vehicle for character development and who you're becoming in this entire process of, transitioning from good to great. It's much more than just what you are on the field. And I've had similar experiences, Dad, where I've had a player in my office, and he'll interrupt his mother, or like little things like that, and it'll really put me off. And so we're hesitant to offer players for those reasons as well. So just be thinking about growing as boys, as girls, as future, husbands, fathers, wives and mothers, and those things as well. Those things are critically important. I have a newborn at home, and I'm so grateful, to have played this game and been around this game long enough where soccer can be the vehicle to learning the things that I needed to know so I can be a good husband and father too. And so, this whole idea of being a great soccer player, soccer ends for all of us on this call, and you might coach, but still there are more important things to what you're doing on the field, coach or player.
Great. Yep. And we'll end it up here with your
Sure. And this is my one little pitch, guys. I would ask if you can follow us on Instagram and Twitter, MVNU Men's Soccer, MVNU MS. We are going to be hosting some ID events in May and in July. And so we'd love to have high school age players out to our campus and just to see what we're building at MVNU. That's all I'm going to include, though. You can see our beautiful turf and stadium, and it's a great place to play soccer. But I did want you, at least the social media age, to at least see our Instagram and Twitter handle. We'd love to interact with you in that way.
Great. Yeah, and there's that little guy, number 23, and he looks like he's 12 years old, and he's actually a college soccer player. And it's funny, when I watch the other teams at first go up against him, it seems like they almost don't take him seriously, but he's an unbelievably dynamic player, and he has a heart bigger than he is, and what I love about when I watch this kid play, even though his shorts seems like it's going to go all the way down to his ankles, I mean, he doesn't care, and my goodness, what a great story, right? What a great young man.
He plays big. He plays big. And beyond that, he's a sophomore, going to be a junior. And so all of our opponents know about him now. So that initial laughing period where they don't think he's a player, that's over, because they know how good he is at this point.
Yeah, that's true. So I'll go and stop sharing. And we've gone, I was hoping to just keep it at 45 minutes, but Zach, thank you very much. It was great. I'd like to see my grandson sometime. But for all of you on here, this was kind of a serious type talk, which we also want to try and make it somewhat lighthearted, so he put the picture of Ronaldo on there because he, that always pleases some people in here. But the other thing too, I was a former college coach for a little bit, and a lot of times I get, coaches ask, what did I look for, or what should they look for in a player? And, and I also was involved in ODP a long time. And I remember when I was selecting players for the state team or the regional teams or even the national pool, I always wanted to see a player where I didn't see their face, but I saw their soul. And, every coach, they can see your face, right? And when you go out and play, but can they really see your soul? And there was a young lady that I used to coach, and we were down 6-0, 5-0. It was in regionals. It was a club team, and the ball was going out of bounds. It was rolling out of bounds, and she didn't want to give the other team she didn't want to give up another corner kick. So she literally slides on the ground, keeps the ball in bounds, stands up, and it's in the 78th minute. I mean, who cares? We would have lost the game. I must have had 6 college coaches, Division I college coaches, come up to me and say, "Who's that kid?" They didn't care about the score. They wanted her because they wanted her spirit. They wanted her attitude. They wanted, and she ended up actually playing at Notre Dame for the Notre Dame women's team. So, like what Zach said, you never know who's watching. And, whenever you play, you should basically show your soul and not just your face. Show that you love the game, you love to play the game, and you're here because you're really good players. And you should embrace that. You should enjoy that. And you should be proud of yourself. And the other thing too, is even though some of the stories we told, you might say, well, those people are obsessive, like Alan Shearer staying after practice, and Jerry Rice going in after he won the Super Bowl, the day after he won the Super Bowl, and working on patterns. Well, that's just passion. That's not obsession, that's passion. And there's a difference. So basically just, again, just remember that you're all talented now because you're at where you're at. You're on this call, you're on this Zoom meeting, but it's your character and it's the other little things that get you through it, not just in soccer, right? But in life. And as coaches, I'm a coach, and people always ask me, how do you measure success? And I always just say, ask me 20 years later, because for me, if my players go on and they're successful, parents and spouses, and they contribute, to the community, great. Then I'm a successful coach. So at the end of the day, embrace your success right now. And, get ready though, because you're going to have some peaks and valleys. You're going to have times when you dip and people catch up on you. But at the end of the day, you got to have that positive self-talk and that drive within you to go from just being good. You're good right now, but can you be great? So thank you all very much. And I hope this was worth a little bit of your time. My son and I will stay on afterwards just to answer a few questions. But if not, I wish all of you the best of luck and enjoy the rest of your weekend.